Hi there, everybody. I am Chase Raz, and this is TZO, coming to you with the third video in a series of probably four-ish that are partly sponsored by Zilliqa themselves, showcasing how the ZilBridge works. In this particular video, I'm going to be showing you how the testnet works, or how the ZilBridge on testnet works prior to launch. And you may be wondering, why would I want to know this? Why is this something I would want to do? Well, for those of you who are into using the testnet and testing everything out early, you know that there were some rewards for testing out and finding problems, but that ended in late July. So why test now? Well, maybe you're wanting to get some experience with the bridge beforehand, make sure you're comfortable with it before real funds get involved. That's pretty much a big deal. But maybe you also want to try some things out and get more comfortable with using the testnet in general. So whether you're really here for the ZilBridge or learning a little bit more about Zilliqa and blockchain technologies, either path is perfectly okay. So the first thing we want to do in order to use the ZilBridge is go to ZilSwap. It's at zilswap.io. And we're going to transfer over from the swap feature to the bridge. And once you're here, at least for now, until this goes on to mainnet, we see this beautiful message that tells us we need to be on testnet, that the bridge doesn't currently work on mainnet. What does this mean? What do we do about this? Well, it's pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our ZilPay extension, and we're going to switch over to testnet. And this sounds really complex. There are actually two ways to do this. It sounds complex, but it's super easy. There are only two ways. The easiest way is to click on mainnet right here in the upper left of your extension and switch over to testnet. That very same menu can be found by going to the menu and then choosing networks, and you'll see it's the same menu that's there. So now we're on testnet, and we can see that with this orange testnet that's up in the upper left of the extension. And I was going to say this for a little bit later, but I think we'll go ahead and do this with MetaMask as well. The two extensions you're going to want is you're going to want to be working with ZilPay for the Zilliqa side of the bridge. And then if you're bridging over to Ethereum, you're going to you'll want to be working rather with MetaMask. And so that's exactly where I'll pick up right now. Let's just jump over to MetaMask. And again, I'm doing this slightly out of the order I had intended. But in MetaMask, if you already have an account here, it's amazingly simple as well. At the top center, you're going to switch from the Ethereum mainnet down to the Ropsten test network. Now, this particular test network is one of the more common, more popular test networks. So it's if you do some tests on blockchain, if you whether that's for smart contract or for some other reason, this is probably one of the test networks you're familiar with, and it is, of course, where the Poly Network bridge is operating currently. So again, we want to make sure that MetaMask is on the Ropsten test network for Ethereum side. And in our ZilPay, we want to make sure that we're on Zilliqa's testnet. Great. So from there, we can get started to some degree. But now that we're on testnet, we have no tokens. Our tokens don't just transfer over from mainnet. We wouldn't want them to, right? On the testnet, it's like fake points. You can have all the tokens you want. To a degree, you can have all the tokens you want, but they're not worth anything. They're not valuable like our actual Zil or ETH or anything else are. So we need to go to a particular faucet. There are several, but we need to go to a faucet and get some tokens we're going to be working with. Now, with this particular bridge, right now, we have the ability to test and transfer Zil. So we can basically wrap Zil and send it over to ETH, to Ethereum. We can transfer ZWAP. We can transfer ETH itself and bring it into the Zilliqa blockchain, and we can transfer in DAI. So those four tokens, Zil, ZWAP, ETH, and DAI. I'm not going to go through the permutations for each one of these, but I'll tell you what you can do. If you do want to do, I think I'm just going to go from Zil and take my Zil and wrap it and move it over to Ethereum. So if you do want to go further, I'll say go to ZilSwap, click that hamburger button for the menu, and go to the guide. Open up the guide. Here, within the documentation, let me zoom in a little bit. Within the documentation for the ZilBridge, you're going to see an article that had been here previously about beta testing the bridge. This is when there were rewards being issued and all of that I mentioned before. Go ahead and click on this. I'm almost following this. I mean, this is a way to do it. So I am following this to a T. And you could follow through and get the Oh, let's see. Yeah, definitely. You can get the fountains for some of the other tokens in here. Really, you only need a fountain for Zil and for ETH, because then you would go to a DEX and trade for the other testnet tokens you need, just like you do on mainnet, just like you take your real Zil and trade it for, Zwap and GZIL and everything else. In the same way, you do that on testnet. So what we want to do is go to a faucet for Zil, and I'm coming here to the Nucleus wallet. And what I'm going to do, I'm using just a brand new blank wallet for this. So I'm going to copy the address, and I'm going to say, hey, faucet, give me some testnet Zil. So we'll verify that we're not a robot and run the faucet. This transaction's in process. It may take a little bit, so I'm going to pause here for a moment, and I'll come back once the Zil is in my account. Okay, so as you saw, on a whim, I had checked to see if it was nearly instantaneous. But one thing you should know if you don't work with mainnet very often or ever is that, or excuse me, with testnet, that testnet is operating just like mainnet, right? The tokens may not be worth anything like they are in mainnet. It may be for experimentation and practice and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's still a functioning blockchain, right? It's just where the stakes don't matter and you can have as many of whatever as you want. So using this faucet, I do get 5,000 Zil, and they were delivered in a normal transaction time. It was somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds. It wasn't very long at all. Normal Zilliqa transaction times as of the time of recording. So now I have some testnet Zil. Wonderful. Somebody show me how to switch this over to mainnet, right? That's what we're all thinking right now. That's the joke I'm sure all of us made when we first ever used a faucet, and it gets old very quickly. But what we want to do is go back to ZilSwap. We're back at the bridge, and because we're on testnet within ZilPay, everything's going to work wonderfully here. So what we want to do at this point is start transferring our Zil. We want the bridge to wrap it and move it over into our Ethereum address, which we're using MetaMask to access. So let's, and you know what, before we do this, before we even do that, I want to go ahead and enter in the Zilliqa contract on the Ethereum blockchain. I'm going to scroll my notes here. You can get this from that same document I mentioned before on ZilSwap. They're going to give you all of this information. You know what? I'm not going to look for it in real time here. It may have just been on screen, but if you want the contract address, you can either grab it from this video. I'll go ahead and put it in the description down below on YouTube. So you can copy and paste it from there, from this particular document we're looking at on screen. But I'm going to copy and paste the Ethereum contract address for Zilliqa. I'm doing this off screen. Sorry, I grabbed too many characters. Don't you hate it when that happens? There we go. I'll copy, go over, and I will add this to MetaMask. So bear with me, as I haven't done this all that frequently recently. Saying invalid address. Oh, I had it as a bullet list. That explains things, right? So here's my Zil. It recognizes at 12 decimals. And we're looking for the contract address. Starts as 735, ends in 7961D, right? So you can just double check again. It's going, oh, I just got rid of it. It's going to be in multiple locations. I'll stop messing myself up here and just go ahead and add it. Okay. So we can see it's added. I have none. I want to move them again from ZilPay on Zilliqa. I want to move some, not all, some of these 5,000 over to Ethereum. What we're really hoping for, by the way, is that the inverse of this. This is not financial advice, but of course we're hoping for the inverse of this. And, talking about bringing money to Zilliqa, but it's not just about, hey, we want money, we want access. It's if you've heard people talk about that, it's not, some get rich quick scheme. The more you bring onto a blockchain, think about this, the more you bring onto a blockchain. So when we bring a US dollar stablecoin, when we bring ETH, when we bring Bitcoin, when we bring these other tokens that are going to be connected at the very beginning over, that actually it helps you increase your total value locked as more pools get created. And one of the reasons there's incentive to create these pools on Zilliqa is that then there's a more functioning and robust ecosystem. So when you think for a moment like, oh, I'd really like to maybe speculatively buy into some ETH for a moment, you can do that without having to transfer to a centralized exchange or without having to do, right? You have that ability because the wrapped ETH is going to be on Zilliqa. I can keep going, and stablecoin, et cetera, right? Whatever else it is. So when we talk about bringing the money to Zilliqa, that isn't necessarily only at face value. Anyway, I digress. You can see here from ZilSwap that Zilliqa, we're connected to this wallet that I've just recently created for the purposes of this video, but we need to connect MetaMask to ZilSwap, and that actually feels pretty weird to me still. A brief interjection here. You see from ZilSwap, the wallets you can connect. You're not limited to MetaMask. That's the one that's written up in the documentations. That's the ETH wallet that I'm personally comfortable using and showcasing. So I'm going to select MetaMask. It's going to have me connect. I'm going to be blurring some of that out because some of those are my real accounts. So I certainly don't want that. I'll just go ahead and say next and get that off of screen. And so now, great, we're connected. Just doing a last minute double check because, again, these are new accounts for me. They're fake just for this video. 599U, and this one should be 2420. Oops, I clicked twice. My apologies. 2420. Yeah, so we're looking good. I have nothing in this Ethereum account. I have, 5,000 ZIL. Great. I haven't gone, you know what? I will do one more interjection. I do want to show you one other thing very quickly. If we were to go to swap, remember, I'm on testnet. We see that right here on ZilSwap. We see that I'm on testnet, so I can trade some of my ZIL. And let's say I wanted to test the ability to transfer ZWAP as well. We could say, you know what, I don't actually want to do a full amount there. It's not registering for some reason. I'll say, let's do 500. And you know what, I want to change that. Let me just get 10 ZWAP, whatever that is, 390. And you know, it helps. It helps because blockchain is not necessarily a push technology. It does help if you refresh from time to time. So, and I want to keep that in. Instead of editing that out, I'm going to keep that in the video because I want you to know that that is something that happens from time to time. So I want to just get 10 ZWAP. I'm going to double check. I have 5,000 ZIL. Let's make it happen. Hey, you know what? Let's go fantastic here. We're on testnet. Price is no object. Let's make it happen. I'm going to let that transaction go for a moment and let it queue up, and I'll be right back yet again. So with that transaction confirmed now, as we can see here in view on ViewBlock, that even though we're on testnet, everything's operating as normal. So again, if you've never used testnet, it is exactly the same as using mainnet. In fact, let's take a look at our extension here. We see that the amount of ZIL has been decreased by the appropriate amount. And then if we were to go and add ZWAP in to this wallet on testnet, right, you'd have to add the contract in here. But if we were to do that, we would then see that I have 10 ZWAP. I'm just going to confirm that like I did over on ViewBlock. We can go take a look at this wallet. We can look at the tokens, and we can see, 10 ZWAP. So again, I hope I'm proving the point. Everything works just like mainnet. Now we want to get to the big reveal, right? The big purpose. I'm clicking around aimlessly. Sorry about that. We're going to go to the bridge. We're going to connect our wallet. Everything's connected here. I'm nervous. Are you nervous? We shouldn't be nervous. Everything's working. Let's go ahead and take 2,500 ZIL, and we're going to wrap it, and we're going to move it over to ETH. I clicked head to confirmation. So let's review this screen. We're going to be confirming our transfer. Please review carefully. These transfers are non-reversible once they're processed. Now, look, that doesn't mean you can never move it back, right? You could do another transaction and move the successful amount over. This is just an extension of the idea that if you move something to the wrong account, or if an account doesn't exist or you don't have access to it, it's gone, right? It's out there in the, no pun intended, out there in the ether. I probably have to do a cut right here to stop my eyes from rolling on the playback. I really did not mean to intend a pun there, but we want to confirm this process if and only if everything looks right. To me, this does look correct. It's telling me approximately how long this is going to take, somewhere under 30 minutes. This process, I should point out, is not immediate. So how quickly do we want to, let's just go. I've got the testnet Zil in here. Let's make it rip and roar as fast as the Zilliqa side can potentially process. But getting back to it, as I agree to all of these and I give the credentials and the security, I want to point out that you do need to be patient as this process happens, because what's happening behind the scenes right now is ZilSwap is interfacing with a series of smart contracts. So one is taking and locking up your tokens that you're trying to move over. It's locking them on Zilliqa in a lock contract for Poly Network. Then on the Ethereum side, a lock contract or some other type of contract over there for Poly Network is going to be sending wrapped Zil over to your, your ETH wallet, the one we were setting up in MetaMask, or your ETH wallet of choice that we saw from the menu before. All of that process, as you can imagine, the Zilliqa transaction, and we're not talking about wallet to wallet transaction, the smart contract, the lockup and the execution of it. Then there's the process of releasing the wrap tokens on the other blockchain. This is where you get this time estimate where it's generally under 30 minutes. I would imagine that if you're going to be transferring, I think Bitcoin's probably going to be, I'm guessing here, probably the longest. You can even see on this screen right now, it's estimating the time left. It dropped from 15 to 10 while I've been talking about it. I have not, despite appearances, I've not been talking about it for 5 minutes at this particular point. So we are getting some updates, but here's the key. Do not close this page while we transfer your funds. Like, you can switch over to other tabs if you want. That's fine. I'm the type of person where if I'm moving a significant amount of funds off of or into Zilliqa, I'm probably just going to not touch my computer for a little bit and walk away and record this video when this is happening on mainnet. For testnet, look, this goes back to answering the question, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to see it? Why would you want to try it? Maybe you want to take a look at some of the instructions that we saw elsewhere on how do you do this for moving ZWAP over to ETH? How do you do this for moving ETH over to Zilliqa? How do you do this moving DAI over to Zilliqa? You want as much practice as you possibly can get. That's one of the reasons why. And so even if you say, you know what, we're past the point where I can get rewards for trying this, I'd still suggest go ahead and try this on testnet if you think this is something you're going to be doing on mainnet, especially if you've never done a blockchain to blockchain bridge before. I don't know. I think back to the first time I ever made a Bitcoin transaction when there was nothing but Bitcoin, right? That was the only one out there. And I remember making my first transaction and I was so, excuse being a little bit egregious about this, but I was so paranoid about making sure I had the address. I didn't even trust copying and pasting it. Like I was so, and what was Bitcoin maybe in that time? Like a couple of bucks. I don't know. But you do want to get experience with this. You do want to give it a try. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause this video. We're certainly not going to just talk for the next 10 minutes, and I will be back yet again. So here it is. We have it, except sort of. It's actually a day later, and it's not that the process took an entire day. It's that on testnet, the original transaction I made failed. And so I did come back the next morning right now and completed another transaction. I reached out to Zilliqa and let them know, hey, I had some issues. But I want to reinforce that this is not all that concerning at the moment because, we're testing. This is on testnet. And if everything worked flawlessly all the time, we'd go ahead and wrap up and move everything over to mainnet. That's not quite where we're at. We're almost there. At least I think. I think we're almost there. And I know that everybody is patiently waiting for the launch of this ZilBridge, but there are a few things to wrap up. So it did finally work at this particular moment, and we can see that, but some of the numbers are going to skew a little bit. The reason for that is I did go ahead and load more testnet Zil into my account. So you see just over 5,000. I've used the faucet twice, so a total of 10,000 in. My first transaction of whatever it was failed. I did this transaction of 2,000 and it was successful. And what the hope is that we'll go over to MetaMask and the amount will be there. It's possible that it's not. We're going to see in real time together. But if not, again, I'll reach back out to Zilliqa and I'll let them know. And we'll keep looking at it and keep improving. Doesn't look like it's there. I'll take a look and see if I can maybe click around a little bit and get it to refresh. But I don't think it's there. And we could, of course, take a look at this particular address on ETHScan and see. But I don't think it made it all the way through. So what I'll do is I'll show you this completion screen. I'll go follow up on that issue, and then I'll come back with some type of conclusion here in just a moment, because as you can see, testnet's working, just not fully. All right, so I'm back yet again, and here's how we're going to conclude, because I can confirm that the transaction didn't go through on MetaMask. You can see if we take a look over at ZilPay, that everything on the Zilliqa side has worked well. In fact, I'm just going off of the fact that, you see, I triggered the second transaction of 200 ZIL, 2,000 ZIL to move it over to the Ethereum network. I reached out to Zilliqa to say, what's going on, right? I asked that question, what's happening? Walk me through this. Am I doing something wrong? What should I know? And, I have to admit, the answer was quite reaffirming. It was reassuring that it seems as if everything is working on the Zilliqa side just fine. But for those of us, we know we're new in the blockchain space. We know that. And so apparently the issue is actually with the Ethereum testnet, this Ropsten test network. For some reason, it is somewhat sporadic. It's somewhat, I was joking with the Zilliqa team that it's like some parts of blockchain seem to be put together with, duct tape and wooden dowels. And potentially that's what we're experiencing with the Ropsten test network right now, that they are somewhat intermittent. And according to Zilliqa, it has to do with rollbacks, network rollbacks that they're performing on the Ropsten test network. As someone on the business side, I don't 100% know what that means, but here's where it gets us. One, we're still on test network for a reason. We're still on testnet for a reason. Two, testnets don't operate with the same reliability that mainnet does. I think for a lot of us who come from more established industries, we view that as somewhat of a problem. But hey, I have good news for you. The problem in this scenario is not the Zilliqa testnet. It's one of the Ethereum testnet. So that's really good and reassuring. We know what the process is going to look like. We're able to complete it. There are times, by the way, just not while recording, there are times where even on testnet, this is successful, where it does work. So the process of bringing this from testnet to mainnet is still going forward. Everything's looking good. It's tracking as it should be. And I still encourage people to come in, take a look, try this out, start experimenting with testnet if you've never used it before. Try the bridge, get comfortable with it before it comes to mainnet in its final working condition. But I do look forward to coming back and showing this to you as it's working, so that we can get an additional touch point, get more confidence in it. And just thankfully, the problem right now is not on the Zilliqa side. Isn't that refreshing? Isn't that very reassuring? To me, it is. This, again, has been the third in a series of videos partially sponsored by Zilliqa to showcase the ZilBridge. Take care, everybody.